When you know someone you love wants to hurt you, every sound becomes a threat. Every shadow feels alive, and every breath you take feels borrowed. The moment I heard Sarah whisper those cold, unfeeling words, "Tomorrow night, Chloe will be gone for good," I knew I had less than 24 hours to save myself. My name is Chloe, and what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story. It's my life, my nightmare, and somehow my survival. That night, after creeping away from the window where I'd been eavesdropping, I hid in my car down the street, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they would hear it. I couldn't go home. Not now. The very walls I once thought of as safe had turned into a cage. And inside that cage, predators were waiting for me to fall asleep. I drove aimlessly for a while, rain smearing the city lights into blurred streaks on my windshield. Tears burned in my eyes, but I forced them back. I couldn't afford to break down. Not now. If I gave into panic, I would lose. And if I lost, I would never see another sunrise. I finally pulled into a quiet parking lot near the edge of town and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. The silence inside the car felt deafening. I'd thought about calling the police right then and there, but what would I say? "Hello, officer. My cousin and my brother are plotting to get rid of me because they want my estate." It sounded like something out of a bad movie. Without solid proof, they probably think I was paranoid or imagining things. No. If I wanted to survive and bring them to justice, I needed undeniable evidence, something no one could ignore. And that meant I had to stay close enough to see their plan play out. My stomach churned at the thought. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to leave town and never look back. But I couldn't. This was my home, my life, my legacy. I had worked too hard to let two snakes slither in and take everything I'd built. By dawn, I had a plan. It wasn't perfect and it was risky. Terrifyingly risky. But it was the only way. I drove to a tiny motel on the outskirts of the city, paid in cash and checked in under a fake name. The room was small and musty with peeling wallpaper and a flickering light bulb, but it was safe. For now. After locking the door, I laid down on the narrow bed and tried to rest, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. I kept replaying Sarah's voice in my head, hearing the cold certainty in her tone. She had no doubts, no hesitation. To her, my life was just an obstacle standing between her and everything she desired. Later that afternoon, I drove back toward my house, staying a few streets away to avoid being seen. From my hidden vantage point, I watched how Michael carried several boxes into the basement. Each time he glanced around nervously, as if afraid of being caught. What's in those boxes, I wondered, a chill creeping down my spine. Part of me didn't want to know, but the larger part, the fighter inside me, knew I had to find out. As the sun set, painting the sky in streaks of crimson and gold, the tension in the air thickens like fog. Tonight was the night they would try to end me. I waited until full darkness fell before slipping out of my hiding place and creeping toward the house. The garden, once my pride and joy, now looked like a jungle of shadows. Every rustle of leaves felt like a warning. Every creak of the porch boards sounded like a scream. Inside, I could hear muffled voices. Sarah and Michael were talking in low, urgent tones, but I couldn't make out the words. I moved silently around the back of the house, my heart hammering so hard it hurt. When I reached the basement window, I crouched down and peered inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. The basement was lit by a single hanging bulb, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. On the floor lay several large tarps, and on a nearby table, I saw ropes, duct tape, and a bottle of some dark liquid I didn't recognize. Michael was kneeling beside one of the tarps, arranging the items with disturbing precision. Sarah stood nearby, arms crossed, watching him with an expression of icy determination. "This has to be perfect," Sarah said. "No mistakes, no loose ends." Michael nodded. "I know. I didn't think it would come to this." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Don't you dare get soft now. You've wanted this as much as I have. After tonight, it's done. Chloe will be gone and everything will finally be ours." I clapped my hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp. They weren't just planning to get rid of me. They were preparing for it like it was some kind of project. I stumbled back from the window, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Panic clawed at my throat, but I forced myself to stay quiet. I couldn't afford to be caught. Not now. I needed a plan. Fast. I backed away from the house and ran to my car, my mind racing. Calling the police was still not an option. Without proof, they wouldn't believe me. And by the time they investigated, it would be too late. But maybe I could turn their plan against them. As midnight approached, I crept back toward the house, moving as silently as a ghost. Through the window, I saw Sarah and Michael in the living room, laughing and sipping wine. They looked like any other pair of siblings enjoying a quiet night in. If a stranger walked in, they would never suspect the darkness beneath those smiles. I slipped inside through the back door, moving quickly and quietly toward my bedroom. My heart raced with every step. One wrong move, and it would all be over. Inside my room, I grabbed the small recording device I had hidden in my nightstand. It wasn't much, but if I could capture even a few minutes of their conversation, it might be enough to convince the authorities. As I turned to leave, a floorboard creaked loudly. I froze, my blood turning to ice. "Chloe," Sarah's voice rang out from the living room, sharp and suspicious. "Is that you?" I forced myself to stay silent, pressing against the wall. A moment later, I heard footsteps approaching. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't move. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until finally they stopped just outside my door. For a long, terrifying moment, the only sound was my own ragged breathing. Then Sarah spoke again, her tone calm, but deadly serious. "Michael," she called out, "bring the rope." At those words, something inside me snapped. I bolted toward the window, throwing it open and leaping into the night. Behind me, I heard Sarah scream my name, followed by the pounding of footsteps as they chased after me. Branches tore at my clothes as I sprinted through the garden, my lungs burning, my heart threatening to explode. I didn't dare look back. If I did, I might freeze. And if I froze, they would catch me. I reached the edge of the property and dove into a patch of dense shrubs, lying flat on my stomach as Sarah and Michael ran past, cursing and shouting. "She couldn't have gone far," Michael yelled. "Find her." I held my breath, praying they wouldn't see me. Minutes felt like hours as they searched, their voices growing fainter and fainter, until finally there was only silence. When I was sure they were gone, I crawled out of the bushes and staggered to my feet. My entire body trembled with exhaustion and fear. I had escaped, but just barely. And now There was no turning back. They thought I was still somewhere nearby, but by morning, they would believe I was gone forever. As dawn broke over the horizon, I stood on a hill overlooking my house, watching as Sarah and Michael moved around inside, like actors in a twisted play. They looked worried, frantic even. That's when I realized I could play this so that they think I'm gone. Let them believe I'm gone. Let them celebrate their victory. And then I would return with proof and take back everything they'd tried to steal. Chloe disappears into the city, leaving Sarah and Michael convinced she is out of the picture for good. But Chloe is very much alive and ready to turn the tables.